Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to the ranking member for those eloquent statements. You stated the case. I can save part of my remarks. I do have written remarks which I would like to submit for the record, if subject to your approval, Mr. Chairman. And I'll have some informal remarks now. First, I want to thank this committee and thank the full committee for the work that you've already done on this critically important subject, the work that went into the National Defense Authorization Act that, of course, has now passed both houses. Both bills from the Senate and the House have a number of our recommendations. They're not in 100% overlap, so there will be some work to do in conference, but we certainly have made a substantial start in really putting these recommendations, implementing the recommendations, because if it's just a report that sits on a shelf, it's not going to serve the public interest. Just a bit about the commission. You talked about it, Mr. Chairman. There were 14 members. There were 4 members of Congress, 4 members from the executive branch, and 6 from the private sector. Our work was entirely nonpartisan. There wasn't a moment of partisan discussion in the 30-plus meetings that we had. In fact, I couldn't tell you the partisan affiliations of pretty much anyone that was in the room, except, of course, the members of Congress. And that was the spirit with which we approached this incredibly important problem. I don't really need to outline for this committee how serious this is. This is one of the, if not the most serious international relations problem that we face. The ranking member listed the attacks that we've already endured, and there will certainly be more to come. We are the most wired country in the world, and therefore we're the most vulnerable country in the world. And as we've learned in the pandemic, something which strikes at our essential economy and government poses a grave danger to this country. So let me just give you a brief outline of how the work of the Solarium sort of breaks down. If there are really 3 pieces. One is reorganization, one is resilience, and one is response. Reorganization means trying to develop a coherent structure in the United States government so that we can respond to cyber threats and cyber attacks. The problem, as is often the case, is that the authority for cyber is scattered throughout the government. It's in the FBI, it's in Cyber Command, it's in CIA, DHS, it's in all areas of the government. So one of our primary focus was on bringing some coherent organizational strategy to that silo problem, which the chairman mentioned. The principal recommendation there is one that you've already adopted in your committee, which is the creation of a national cyber director to oversee and coordinate all of these various functions throughout the federal government. The second piece is resilience, which is building up our cyber defenses. And it goes from simple cyber hygiene to being just more secure in how we deal with the cloud, how we certify home routers and all of those kinds of things in order to be more resilient, to make it less likely that an adversary will succeed. The third piece is response. How do we respond to a cyber attack? And more importantly, how do we notify potential adversaries that we will respond? And we'll be talking about that. And all of these 3 pieces come into what's called layered cyber deterrence. The intention is to shape behavior. We'll be talking about that in the international field of norms and standards. The second is to deny benefits. That's the resilience that I was talking about. And the third piece is impose costs. The truth is that we haven't done a very good job of imposing costs. We've become a cheap date in cyber. We can be attacked, as we were with the OPM breach the ranking member mentioned, or other attacks on our democracy, and there's no real consequences. There are no real results. There's no cost paid by our adversary. We've got to make adversaries go through a cost calculation saying, well, if we do this, they might do this something else to us. And it may not be cyber, it may be sanctions, it may be other kinds of a response. but we have to establish that there will be a response. Otherwise, because cyber is a relatively cheap form of aggression, it will continue to happen. So that's the overall focus of our commission. And I have to say, working with the two members from your subcommittee, Jim Langevin and Mike Gallagher, has been one of the great pleasures of my life. We've had a fantastic experience working together with the other 12 members of the commission, really wrestling with some difficult issues, working hard, concentrating, and coming up with what we feel is a solid piece of work that will really help our country move forward in this critically important area. So I thank the subcommittee for your attention and look forward to the hearing.